Welcome to Paper Quest. I'm Jessie.
And I'm James.
And we're two friends teaming up in our ongoing quest through the Infinite Library.
Each episode, we get together to discuss our latest buddy read, swap stories on our recent solo reads, and talk about the upcoming books we look forward to reading next.
This is Paper Quest.
Alright, so this week we are going to jump straight into our review of The Best Men by Sarina Bowen and Lauren Blakely. We usually have a segment here where we talk about books we've been reading, but our very next podcast is for The Priory of the Orange Tree, and it's a bit of a massive undertaking. It's an epic fantasy novel, so we're going to skip that part today and just get into our Valentine's Day romance review.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day.
We usually write up a book summary for this, but I liked the back of the book because it was a first-person take by the main character. So I'm just going to read from that. It says, "In my defense, I was left alone with a bottle of single malt and a lifelong penchant for protecting my baby sister. Still, that's no excuse to send 10 drunk texts on why her hasty marriage would be a mistake. If only I had just texted my sister, but nope, I accidentally sent the message to her, her groom, and his super hot wingman. I also use the phrase, super hot wingman, so I'd like to die now. Instead, I have to plan a wedding with the aforementioned hottie and share a too-small guest house in steamy Miami. 3 days in the sun with a cocky, charming former athlete who likes to push my buttons. Fine, two can play that game, until Asher ups the stakes with one wildly sexy suggestion. A no-strings fling, then I go back to my single dad life in New York, and he returns to his star-studded one. Sign me up. But the more nights I spend with the other best man, the more I want days, too. And that just can't happen, especially when I find out the real reason why. As a heads up, first of all, we want to mention that this is an adult romance. Very adult-themed content. Adult ears only. So, initial thoughts.
So, I had sent you a handful of possible romance novels. And wanted to, do something new and different. And so this was one of the books that was highly anticipated for the romance novels. And really the only part that I paid attention to in the description that you just read was actually the very last section that says contents include. And it says, first times, a secret to-do list, champion level flirting, fast cars, hashtag eggplants, and two men who look good in formal wear. And the hashtag eggplants was hilarious to me, and it said something to me about how fun this book was going to be, or how, I hoped it would be. And that was all. And so I did not know until we started reading it that it was a gay romance novel, which was fine, but definitely a surprise when I was like, whose point of view is this from? What am I reading? And so I thought it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I read it fairly quickly. And I thought the characters were really fun, too.
Yeah, this was my my very first true romance novel. And it was exactly as fun, lighthearted, almost nothing too serious, just good time.
Yeah, so we have Mark, who is a very kind of
OCD.
Yeah, I was going to say type A nerd who works in the stock market. He's a trader.
There are math jokes.
There are a lot of math jokes. And he loves a spreadsheet. He loves an Excel, which really just hit home with me. And I was all about it. And his little sister,
Hannah,
is getting married to someone that she's only known or dated for 3 months. And so he's feeling a little protective. And as the description says, he's had a few drinks and he starts texting what he thinks is just her. And basically says, like, this is a horrible decision. Don't get married. And also, by the way, that other guy, Asher is really hot and goes on about his abs and his lips and all of these things to the whole group chat.
Yeah.
So
the small wedding group chat that they just made, on a whim, and he saw just the sister's name as one, as probably many have done. I have done. So, yeah, we all know that feeling. How if you had sent the text, how would you react? Would you be devastated? I think I would handle it. I think I'd be like, yeah, that happened.
Yeah. I mean, we have, you and I and my husband, we have a group chat, and I've definitely sent random things in there that are not spicy, but it's like, hey, the dogs need to go out or something. But still, it'll be like, wrong chat. And I'm just like, whatever. It's fine. But yeah, I would just have to own it. If it happened, the only thing you can do is say sorry and move forward. Yeah. In my opinion.
And he, kind of works in his favor in the end.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't really flaunt his gayness. I think he says he's bi. I mean, he was married to a woman at one point. And we also have... So the guy that ends up seeing the text is Asher, the other main character. This story flips every chapter. Every other chapter is the other guy. So we're getting both point of views throughout the story. Asher is a former... Was it soccer?
Soccer. But
former soccer player.
He says football because he is British.
Yes. And he is now running a photography studio, a high-end. He takes the photographs of all the sports teams, basically.
Yeah.
And throughout most of the book, he is waiting to hear back on a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And so the day after Mark sends all of these drunk texts, he has to show up to the engagement party that Asher has planned. And so he has to deal with it head on and see Asher and his sister and her fiance, whose name is Flip. Well, his name is actually Felipe, but they call him Flip. He's very aristocratic, highfalutin. His parents His
parents are the worst.
Live on an island somewhere and jump around the world to mansions. But
he is luckily like a normal person. Like, he's not annoying.
Yeah, Flip is a normal person. And Mark is a little hungover, and he has to show up and just...
He thinks he has to apologize individually to each of the three of them.
Yes. And he apologizes to Hannah and Flip, and he does not apologize to Asher because he didn't really say anything bad.
There was no insult. He just said, also, you're a super hot wingman. So he just apologizes,
and
heads off to the bar.
His stupid lips. Yeah, he goes to the bar and has, I believe, orange juice.
I don't remember actually what he was drinking.
At one point, he should have been probably drinking, but he had an orange juice, and I thought that was very cute.
Yes. And then Asher walks over, and he's like, hey, you didn't apologize to me. And he's like, sure didn't. Why would I do that? Like, he's very, like, blunt, to the point, F off, like... And it's not just because of the situation. He just acts like that in general. Yeah. Very, very closed. Well,
and Asher thinks at that point that Mark is straight.
Yes.
So that's interesting because you get the internal dialogue from Asher where he's like, checking out Mark or reading into a look or a touch or whatever, and keeps reminding himself like this dude is straight.
Yeah, I think Asher reads the text as like, this guy's drunk and jealous and I look good, but Asher is like, he kind of looks good too, I would and will do that.
Yeah. And so then by the end of the bridal party, Hannah and Flip have asked each of Mark and Asher to be their best men at the wedding, and and Hannah's pregnant, early in her pregnancy, and so they ask Asher and Mark to fly down to Miami to be there, to be on site to help plan the wedding. And so they are stuck together.
Yeah, they go a week early just to check on things, catering, DJ, etc., because they're states away. So yeah, that's a hilarious surprise when Mark gets told that, and Asher is all about it. Like, he's the excited one. He's the one trying to like, oh, we can't ride coach. We got to upgrade out. We got to have a nice car down there. Wait till you see where we're staying. And Mark is just, I gotta get through this. Keep in my pants, not say anything.
Well, and there's a funny ongoing thing regarding Mark's clothing choices and how he's always in a polo shirt, and
Asher hates it. He's like, polo shirts, really?
Well, and what I think is great is that Mark owns it. Again, he just like owns what he's doing in his life, and he's like, "Hey, I'll bring you an extra." And he starts joking that way, and Asher has to be like, "Is this flirting? What is happening?"
Yeah, he has no read. He thinks he's straight, and he's not really sure how to take this.
Yeah.
I think realistically, maybe he should have caught on a little sooner than he does. Because I feel like I was a third of the way through and they hadn't, like, you know, they were still back and forth thing. It was still just quippy, and I'm just like, do it already.
I feel like the moment where I thought he was going to realize it was they go to a fashion designer because, again, Asher is very, you know, he's close to celebrity. He was a professional athlete.
Yeah, well, he's known. He's known.
So they go to a celebrity fashion designer, and they're getting their matching tuxedos or suits for the wedding. And there's a moment where, because Asher's just like changing right in the middle of the storeroom.
Big show off, yep.
Yeah. And Mark is kind of behind the screen to change. And Mark at one point is fully checking out Asher. And Asher sees it and knows he's being checked out. But at the same time, it's just like, that's strange.
He still has those like seeds of doubt. He's like, maybe, but I'm still trying to read this guy because he is truly very difficult to read. He's being very hard about everything.
Yeah, and I think he just has the position of, you know, he has a young daughter and he was divorced within the past year and from a woman. And although his family and close friends know that he's bi, he's not just like walking around telling people like random, like Asher's still essentially a stranger.
Yeah.
And he doesn't start with like, "Hi, my name is Mark and I'm bi."
Yeah, he's not closeted. Like if you knew he was bi, great, figured it out. He doesn't care. It just doesn't come up in everyday situations.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not the forefront topic for him.
Yeah. Very realistically done, so yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it was a really interesting back and forth at the start.
Yeah. I don't know how far I want to jump ahead, so stop me. But they get onto the plane, and they fight about coach versus first class. Mm-hmm. Again, a lot of back and forths, a lot of, you know, quippiness. Very playful. Nothing is like super hurtful. A lot of playfulness that continues as they get off the plane and get into a very nice sports car. I forget what it was.
It was a red Porsche.
Red Porsche, yes. And what's funny is there was a joke about, so I guess like you're going to drive the whole time, Asher. And he's like, no, you can drive, throws in the keys. He's like, okay, cool. And then he's like really concerned about driving because he's like, well, hold on, I'm not on the insurance. And he's like, oh yeah, but who cares? Just go. And then, again, back and forth. And Asher's like, look, dumbass, you're on the insurance. Like, I want you to have fun too. So I like that he's like, Asher is this guy that's super attractive, kind of full of himself. We know from his past, he's like a partier. His life is a mess, as his past boyfriend said. But like, he still cares. Like, he's still including him in everything. And then I want to say this is where they get to the house, correct? There's no other stops between them?
Right.
Okay.
I will say, though, that I liked their back and forth from the plane to the car to driving to the house, because I really felt like it gave us an opportunity to see that even though Mark is, you know, he's very much standing by his own beliefs. Like, he was like, you know, you go to first class, I don't need to, because he didn't want to have to pay Asher back. He, you know.
It was an excuse still. He was like, oh, this is my way out to not sit next to him.
Yes.
But again, also, it does matter to me that I don't want to owe this guy. Not in a mean way, I just don't want to owe him. Like, remember that time? He just doesn't want that.
Which, again, like, I completely agree. I wouldn't want to owe a stranger, you know.
Yeah.
$500 or whatever the upgrade cost was. That's just strange to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, they have a lot of good back and forth, and Asher gets a mimosa when he gets on, and then after a little while, Mark gets a mimosa because he's like, you know what? To hell with it.
Well,
you know?
he finally sits in that chair and he's like, okay, yeah, this is the way to do it, man.
Have you ever flown first class?
I think that I did once years ago, but the plane that it was on was like a nothing plane, so their version of first class was not fun. It was just like roomier.
Yeah, I have flown first class, but I think I was like 12, and we just happened to get like an upgrade.
Oh,
So
okay, nice.
I couldn't even, I didn't have a drink. I just like got a big chair. So
Yeah, I mean the legroom. I'm 6'2", so the legroom is I'm all about it. That's fantastic. We get definitely the whole switching back and forth every chapter between their perspectives, leading up to the whole point where they finally get together. They're so I don't want to call them polar opposites, but the way they organize their lives and their minds are so different that when they do get together, I love that they sort of balance each other out. Like, let me pull you back from some of your craziness, Asher to Mark, and then Mark to Asher is like, let me pull you back into some
fun.
real life and yeah. So I like how they balance each other out.
Yeah, I liked too that no, I don't know what I was gonna say.
And they both love the same, fake Downton Abbey show, which name I forget.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But they don't know it yet. They both talk about it for a while in their own sections of the book, and then they realize they love the same Downton Abbey show. Yes. I can't remember the name of the fake show.
It was very cute, and it was very clearly Downton Abbey, because that's what I thought too. And yeah, and we also get some insight. I think at the start of the book, they're just kind of in separate places in life.
Very.
So Mark is a single dad, and he has most of the responsibility of his daughter. He's very serious. He's very, he's like thinking about 401ks. Oh, and I know what I was going to say. His name is Mark Banks, and he's Asher calls him a banker.
Yes.
And I thought that was just so silly. And he's like, no, I'm a trader. Like, there's a difference. And he tries to explain it to him, and it just goes over Asher's head. But I thought it was so sweet that they called each other by their last name throughout.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Banks and St. James.
It's such a British thing to do, I swear.
It was just like, very formal at the start. Good morning, Banks. Good afternoon.
Yep, just poking fun at each other.
Yeah.
One thing that we learn fairly quickly from Mark's point of view, and of course we knew Asher was going to learn about it eventually, was that Mark has a sex spreadsheet. Yes. And I wanted to bring this up before we got to the house because this is where that starts coming into play. And he has rows and columns like, oh, I'd love to do 2A with him. It's like, so I love how he has, first of all, it works in a few ways. It works because, of course, he likes spreadsheets and his OCD. And, of course, he would organize his fantasies and his kinks like that. It works from the author's point of view because the author can turn it into jokes for the characters without having to come up with a specific, well, what would the character say here? What's his kink? What's his fantasy? I'll just say 2A, 4B. So she can just be like, hey, later on you want to do 4B? And it's like, that could be anything, and it's funny because it's left up to our imagination.
Right. And you'll see that, I don't remember the numbers, but there at certain points they'll be like, we're going to go for 31 A, B, C, and D, and it's like they're in the shower. So you can only assume 31 is the place maybe, and then A, B, C, and D are the actions.
That's what I was trying to figure out. I wasn't sure I missed that. I was like, what is the row and what's the column? Is it location and act, or...
Well, Mark does explain, I don't remember if it was to himself or when he was talking to Asher or showing Asher, that there are rows or columns for body part.
Oh, that's right.
Things like that. So,
yeah, now I'm thinking this is probably a very detailed sex spreadsheet.
Oh,
if
yes,
if we're getting down to body parts, because I that rings a bell now, and I forgot about that.
Yes, and there's definitely at least more than 40.
Yes.
I don't think they said an end number because he was adding as he was going. He was like, why was this not on my spreadsheet?
Yep. Yeah, he definitely came up with some new ideas along the way. So they get to the house.
Yes.
Great, wonderful, beautiful, going to be a great time. But by the way, the rooms are full. You and I are staying in the guest house behind the house, and it's very small.
Well, and that is also, when they pull up to the house, that is when Asher realizes that Mark may not be straight. Because he reaches over to type in the gate code or whatever.
Oh, yeah, this is when he realizes it.
And Mark has a physical reaction, and he inhales his breath type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And Asher, something, dings in his mind, and he's like, oh, wait.
Yeah, it's just that moment of Mark is driving, but there's like a pin code to enter, so Asher reaches over, and I think part of his arm like brushes his shoulder or his chest. And in Mark's point of view, he states that I had a sudden inhale or intake, but I think he didn't hear it or just missed it because he was doing his thing and sat back down and life went on. And then Asher in his story was like, yeah, I heard that intake though.
And yeah, Mark was like, I'm not gonna move. I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna stay real still, and he's gonna type it in, and we're gonna go. So that made me laugh. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
enjoyed
great.
Those little things.
But we didn't know that Asher heard the intake until later on. So for us, that was still like, Mark's good. Like, it's not known yet. But then Asher, like a couple chapters or so, is like, but also I heard that. So that's where they kind of start playing with each other. Like, they have to stay in the house. They're in separate rooms. But then Asher's trying to see what's going on. Like, Asher's watching his show. They're watching the same show, but Asher, it's like their version of Netflix.
They're in different rooms.
Yeah. And he pauses his show on their version of Netflix. But then he hears the show going still. And he's like, wait, is Mark watching that? So then real creeper.
Yeah, very awkward.
Yeah, real creeper. He goes to the outside, right? Or opens an out facing door.
Yeah, I think it was like a sliding glass door or something.
Yeah.
And he's peeking in
to the other room.
Into Mark's room to see what he's watching, and Mark like must see him in the glass or some reflection or something, because he starts talking to him of like, can I help you?
Yeah, he's like, why are you creeping out there?
Yeah.
And to Mark's benefit, like, instead of being super weirded out, like, okay, crazy, he's like, I have like a regular inside door, right? Like, you could just come that way. It's like, no, I thought I heard you watching the same show, so
I'm gonna be
did it the weird
awkward.
way.
And that kind of quickly leads into them testing out parts of the list.
Yeah, well, what happens is, I think the show they're watching is like a spinoff of the main show, right? And it's like a gay spinoff. And Asher's like, that's like gonna get super gay. Are you okay with that? And he's like, yeah. And that's what's kind of like, okay, we get it. The intake, the fact that he's into this, like, this is gonna happen. And
well, actually, they don't. I think they have that conversation, and then Mark is like resistant because he's like, Asher says something to the effect of like, yeah, that's gonna get gay, and they argue a bit, and Asher's like, why wouldn't Flip and Hannah tell me that you were gay or bi? And Mark's like offended. He's like, that's not, you don't just walk around telling people, randomly that my brother, who just is going through a massive ugly divorce and is having all these personal problems, and by the way, who drunk texted you the other day, oh yeah, he's bi.
Yeah.
And so Asher comes back to him, and Mark is like, why does it even matter? And Asher's just like, well, I could have kissed you sooner, or like I could have used that to my advantage, basically.
Yeah, well, and Mark's internal dialogue to us is that he was like, great, I messed it up. This hot former athlete is in my room, we could do the thing, and I'm like denying him and turning him down. What the heck am I doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so doesn't stay turned down for long. And my only question going into this book, because I don't read in books where there are romances or sexual scenes, it's like the beginnings of it, and then like they dance around like the author dances around what's happening, and you can infer what's being done. Where I didn't know how far romance books typically took sex scenes, I now know it is all the way.
Yeah.
Because there is just the most detailed descriptions, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, so I would say that there are levels. I would say that, like, classic Danielle Steele, hers are, at least, the one I stole from my grandma when I was 12, that one was less in your face, less like
It was probably
descriptive.
elegant to, like, get your cheeks a little red, but...
Yeah. And then there are ones that are like I mentioned, the Katie Robert book last week. That goes full into dominance and submission and, obviously consent. But it's very descriptive.
Yeah.
So
This one was just sucking cocks and blowing loads, and I was like, "Yep, we're going all the way." And these aren't one page scenes; they go on for a while sometimes.
yes, so I will say that I kind of glazed over a lot of that because it does nothing for me. It's two men, and that's not my thing. So
I had fun.
But I definitely do appreciate scenes like that also have some fun in them, which I did enjoy and notice that there was still some like banter or some like awkwardness and things
I
like
don't
that.
think there was ever not back and forth.
Yeah.
Like, they just go at it, but like in a friendly, half-joking way. Like, they just like to get on each other's nerves.
They go at it while going at it.
Yeah, they sure do.
So they decide that they are going to work through as much of the list as possible while they have time together in Miami. And I feel like they definitely did that.
To their credit, they did everything they were supposed to do, and they fit it all in. Okay, that was unintentional, but they fit it all in.
Sorry, I have a 12-year-old mind. But yeah, they threw a beautiful wedding. Everything went off without a hitch, and they are having a lot of fun. And somewhere along the way, as it does in most romance novels, it starts to be more than just fun.
So there's, as you would expect, it does get more, not serious. Like, the whole book is lighthearted, but they get more into, like, maybe we should date. Maybe this is a thing. It's not just
internally,
the hookup.
Internally
only.
Yeah, they don't communicate it to one another. And what's interesting, and again, this might be jumping, but once Flip and Hannah are there a couple days before the wedding, Flip realizes what's been going on because he's best friends with Asher. And he's, like, offended. He's like, you're messing with Mark. Don't break his heart. Like, I will be super mad at you. That's my about-to-be's wife's older brother. You're going to wreck him. Like, he's just been through this divorce.
Well, and she knows that Asher was in a relationship in which that guy broke up with him because Asher was that kind of type. And that guy, I don't know if the boyfriend got a name, but he was like, your life is a mess. Like, that's what he said to him before he broke up with him. And so Asher, I think it works in his favor that he had that feedback and that experience, because he tries working harder and making more time for things. And he's got that one assistant that's always late to tell him the appointments, even though she's set them in the calendar. And he's trying to fix things. And it's good that relationship happened and that he realized that his life was a mess so that this could go right.
But throughout, so you mentioned earlier insecurities. Mark is just generally insecure. Maybe something to note is, although he had some experiences with men in college, Asher was his first full experience. And so he's just generally insecure.
Yes. I almost forgot about that. This would be his first actual... I think he said that he's maybe made out with guys before, or a guy before, but this is the first time for full penetration.
Yes, which is why he had the list, because it was all his fantasies.
Yes.
And so...
there's a few things leading up to the real, the relationship drama. I say drama, again, it's still lighthearted. They have to plan I expected this whole book to lead up to the wedding. It did not. It actually was like half the book and then went somewhere else entirely.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of fun scenes where they were still, I say dating, quote unquote, the dating phase. Like, they're just, having fun. Finally, they know about each other and all that. But they're doing things like the DJ cancels last second. And he's like, well, I know DJs, but, like, it's at a gay club. So, oh no, now they have to go to a gay club. And just lots of little fun things like that where it's like, oh, what are the chances they have to go here?
Well, and I thought it was cute. They go to the gay club and Mark is like, you know, he's in, and I totally get this. I totally understand. He's like, I'm going to do X. I'm going to get this DJ to agree to this price and this thing, and he's going to be on time and, you know, do everything I want. He's not going to play
He just has an
Coldplay or whatever.
Oh yeah, there's like 5 songs or bands where he's like, if I hear this, we're done. Yeah. Like, do not play these effing songs at every wedding.
Yeah, so he was like, man on a mission, barely blinders on, like walking through the club, just like, let me talk to this DJ. And then as soon as that deal was done, Asher was like, you know, do you want a drink?
Like, we're here already.
Yeah, and Asher's like, I'll drive if you want to have a drink. And so Mark has multiple drinks. But I thought it was very cute because up to that point, Asher is the party boy. He's the life of the party. He is very rich. He's, you know, very wealthy, like,
he's got
handsome.
that confidence and authority that I wish, like, he's like max level for all of that.
But I love that he was like, you go and drink and stuff, and I'll basically, like, make sure you're good to go.
Which, I mean, you know, he probably did want to get him a little tipsy.
Yeah.
Works in his favor.
But also, like, I think...
But it wasn't rapey. He just wanted to have fun.
Yeah, no, I think he genuinely thought, like, this dude needs to calm down.
He needs to chill out, yeah. He needs to unbutton the top button, like, on his polo. He
is on a 10 all the time, and he needs to just, like, mellow a little. So I thought that was cute.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
So the one thing, like, it was funny, it was cute, there was sweet moments. What was missing for me personally was there wasn't a lot of chase. There wasn't a lot of, like, some books will call it, like, slow burn. Like, you start to realize that they like each other, and, you know, we went from, like, Asher thinking Mark was straight to sex fairly quickly compared to some other romance.
Yeah, it wasn't a chase, it was a discovery of, like, is he gay? Yes. Full throttle.
Yeah.
I think, and I could be wrong because clearly I'm not a romance book expert, my guess is that she wanted to get you into the story, have fun, and then she kind of reversed it. She used the back half of the book for the chase because that's where we learn, like, the wedding happens and it's like, it's just like brushed aside. It's like, the wedding's done. Like, now let's move on to the rest of the book. It's like, oh, okay. But we find out that they, like, kind of maybe want to see each other when they go back to New York. Mark is like, I have a kid and I can't be dating and this doesn't really work with my real life schedule. But they're like, maybe. He wants to...
And at the end of the wedding, Asher gets a call that says he got that deal and he was going to Paris.
He gets the photography deal and he's going to Paris for the job. So Mark internally is like, I'm ready. I'm going to walk up to him and say, let's do this. Let's try to make dating work back in New York. Mm-hmm. And of course, that classic moment in every book, every TV show, every movie, Asher speaks first. And he's like, this awesome thing happened. I got my deal. Sadly, it's in Paris. What were you going to say?
Yeah, and Mark, being Mark, is just like, oh, okay. Like, it was what it was. And very awkwardly, they shake hands to walk away. And then, like, I guess Mark goes back to find him and gives him a quick kiss. But they have started that falling in love, and there's these moments of, like, Asher joins Mark and his daughter playing in the pool, and he actually, like, she had asked everyone to come play and help her swim, and he pretends to fall in the water, and in his clothes and his fancy shoes and all of that, and makes her laugh and giggle, and of course Mark is, like, swooning, because he's like, oh my gosh, someone to, like, love my daughter, and, you know, it's cute. It's nice.
Yeah, when Asher gets the message that he is going to go to Paris, it's not like, well, that was a fun fling, bye. Like, he was still very interested, but maybe something happens in New York with this guy, or do I continue my career? Right. Because they had agreed beforehand, after this, when we get back to New York, it's over. This is a weekend or a week of fun, and that's it.
It's the classic, like, poor communication. If they had, when they were starting to feel feelings, had said, like, oh, like, this may be more. But they were both scared, and Asher was very afraid that he was going to be a bad boyfriend because he was a bad boyfriend previously.
Yep.
Not that he was bad, that he did anything bad, but he was late and he would miss dates and he would, kind of just disappear for a weekend or whatever, to travel or take pictures and things like that. So he had that insecurity, and then Mark had the insecurity of, like, I have this baggage, I have a child, I have all this work to do, and
yeah, the kid is doing, like, sports and everything else. So it's like, at what point does he sit down and, unless they're already married and living together in the same house, when the heck does he get out to do anything in New York?
Yeah, and his ex-wife was not. She was supposed to have the daughter more, and she was not holding up her end of it.
And they're on good terms. They talk and have fun, but he is a little annoyed that she's not there as much as she could be.
Right, as much as she's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so they part and are just, like, completely pining for each other. And
Paris is supposed to be 1 year, and then he's supposed to be back.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, they get to New York, and he's kind of like, do I wait out the year? If he does come back, does something happen? But, they
actually don't communicate for a while, and then the baby is born, or they have a baby shower. Hannah
I think
Flip's.
it was a birthday. Wasn't it?
Oh, you're right. It was Flip's
birthday.
30th birthday.
And since Asher was Flip's, like, best friend,
yeah.
Asher was like, yeah, I could fly back to the States for that.
Yeah, it just happened to work out. And Asher actually checked multiple times. I guess it was like an Evite.
Yeah.
It was an Evite, and so they could see who had RSVP'd. And so Asher knew that Mark was going, and Mark had checked multiple times and did not see Asher's name, and then checked, like, right before, the day before, and saw Asher's name and was in, like, overdrive.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, he gets a text from his sister saying, like, Asher is. And Mark is like, Asher is here with his new boyfriend, and, like, be prepared to have your heart crushed. And it was not that at all. It was that Asher is here staring at the door, clearly waiting for you.
Yeah, Mark walks into the restaurant, I think, or the bar that they're at. And from Mark's point of view, Asher is fine and doing his thing and whatever. But I think his sister that's like, no, like, before you got here, he was clearly, like, a lost puppy. Like,
yeah, he was waiting for you.
He needed something. Like, he needed something to happen. Like, he needed to walk in. But he's Asher, and he unintentionally plays it off cool. And you're not going to read him like that.
Well, and I think, too, there's like an English archetype of, like, stiff upper lip, and you can't really read the emotions. Everything's inside. So I think there's probably some of that in play too, of, like, he's his best friend and him went to boarding school together, and, like, so I think there's probably some, like, you just keep your emotions close anyway.
Okay.
And they do. Asher sneaks up on him at the bar and says something to him or touches his shoulder, and it's immediately, like, sparks and, like, oh no, I'm feeling this way. Is he feeling this way? I don't know what's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, I thought was very cute.
You know what? I was just, I don't know I don't know what made me think of this, but they mention his floofy hair a lot. Yeah. And speaking of cute moments, I thought it was so funny where Mark, for most of the beginning of the book, kept making fun of his floofy hair. He liked it. There was nothing wrong with it. He was just giving him crap. But then Asher comes back with the haircut. And Mark was like, was that for me? Like, and he was like, yeah, like, you thought it was, floofy. I changed it. Like, kind of for you.
That made me sad because I had believed that Mark really liked it and was just like, I think he wanted to, like, run his fingers through his hair.
Yeah.
And, like, things like that. And I was like, oh no, he cut it because, like, he was, like, offended, and I don't know.
But he cut it, which in some people's eyes is, kind of a big deal to change your whole hairstyle for someone you're hanging out with for the week. So yeah. I think you said, like, that was a cute moment. So I was like, speaking of cute moments, I really like the whole floofy hair joke.
Yeah, that was very cute. And also in the drunk text, Mark had said that Asher had stupid lips. And so Asher kept being like, what about my stupid lips? Why are they stupid? And it was because he wanted to kiss him. And so that kept coming up over and over of like, are my lips still stupid? And yeah, just very sweet. It made me happy. They do decide to leave Flip's birthday party and try to have a relationship, or at least the weekend.
They take the weekend, and this is where Mark kind of comes out of his shell and puts his foot down. He's like, yes, you'll stay at my place. Yes, ex-wife, you will take the kid because I'm going to do things, and you should be here more. And it's your turn. I'm going to do things while he's here. And then they try to, it's time for him to go home, and they try to make plans. Well, what if I come this weekend, and then you come that week? And they're trying to plan these back and forth intercontinental trips. And it's like, this all sounds great in theory, but I mean, dude, the flight alone and just you have to go back immediately. And so that's like the next hurdle they have to get across.
I mean, thank goodness Asher's rich. So, and Mark is a trader. So he's definitely not poor. He lives in a fancy New York apartment.
But I think it sucks for both of them, but I think it's more for Mark because he has to have a kid during the week and he has to have a job during the week. And he doesn't have this schedule he can mess around with. So they're like, well, if I get off work immediately and hit the plane and go to your place in Paris, and then can I be back at home? Can I be back at home in time for Sunday night and work the next day and kid stuff? And
yeah. So they do try, and they agree to try. And there's this interesting scene toward the end where Mark is FaceTiming Asher. I think they're either on the phone or they're FaceTiming or, video chatting.
Yeah, talk about their daughter, right?
Yeah, so she is playing on the playground and she's like, hey, send a video to Asher. Like, she's aware that they're friends, I guess. And she's like playing around and she falls and breaks her arm. And Asher then decides that it's his fault. Don't understand why. He's not there. He's in a different country. But I guess Mark was distracted, quote unquote.
He was like, if we weren't talking right now, you could have been more aware. Like,
No, it still would have happened.
Yeah.
Kids are kids. And so because the daughter now has a broken arm, that means that Mark can't fly to Paris for Asher's birthday. And Asher's really broke up about it and feels awful. And they're sitting and hanging out with the neighbors, and the neighbors are basically like, one of them was like, why are you even here? Like, we can take your daughter for the weekend. She loves us. She's always with us. We're all best friends. Go get your man. And he fully like sends Asher's over there getting drunk. And
it was Ash's turn to be the drunk texter.
Yeah, they swapped places basically, and he's just saying how much he loves him. Oh, he says for the first time via text, like, I love you.
And then he's like, crap, I didn't mean to say that over text for the first time. But he sends all these things like, I get that you're there, but I wish you were here. It's lonely. I'm just going to stay in all day on my birthday.
Yeah.
And he sees that it's drunk texting. So Mark sees that it's drunk texting, and he's kind of like, relaying it to his girlfriend, and she's like,
girlfriend being neighbor.
Yeah, the neighbor. Like, they're just really close friends, or they both have kids. They take care of each other, and she's like, yeah, I mean, she's here. Your daughter's here all the time, anyways. They can have a sleepover. They can have like a weekend together. I mean, look what he's sending you. Yeah. Go get him. Go tell him in person. Like, he wants you.
Yeah, go get your man.
Yeah.
I loved that Asher's drunk texts. So he wakes up and he like can't find his phone, can't figure out where it is. And he literally in his text was like, okay, I'm going to put my phone in the freezer now so I have to stop texting you. And he like put it in the fridge or freezer, like behind like, breakfast or whatever. And I just thought that was very like a cute touch too.
Well, and it was funny because of course he goes and throws his phone off somewhere, but that means he misses Mark's text where Mark says, I'm coming. This is my flight. Meet me this time. So then Asher wakes up hungover and he's like, I'm looking for my phone. Finally finds it. He's like, is that a joke text? Because I was drunk texting, or like, is this dude here right now? Like, he was like an hour away from landing.
So they have a nice, wonderful weekend in Paris, and Asher decides that he's going to come back and just end his photography early, and there's other work. And I think, like you said earlier, they balance each other out really well.
He also stated that, like, the job that he finally got in Paris, while great, still wasn't what he expected. He was like, yeah, I mean, I'm doing it, but I don't care that much. Like, I'd rather go back to New York and figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think by that point, what he wanted in life had just changed. Like, earlier he had said, like, oh, kids, me? Like, no way. But I think, he started seeing it and feeling these feelings for Mark and having these interactions with the daughter, and is like, oh, maybe, like, I could be a stepdad. And maybe I could do this family thing and commitment and, all of that. And I think in the same token, Mark started saying, like you mentioned, like, hey, maybe I can do more for myself and not just be, work, child, work, child, work, child.
Yeah, he had to put his foot down and open up.
Yeah. So they definitely balance each other and complement each other. And, I've never had a relationship where you have to necessarily explain a different type of relationship to a child, but I appreciated how the writers kind of showed the daughter asking questions about, hey, why did you kiss that man? And the responses. And I thought it was well done.
Yeah, there was a scene where one of them or the other was in a car and the other one was leaning over. And she was like, I think Asher was driving and Mark was standing outside. And one of them was like, so you're gonna kiss him in front of your daughter? Yep, sure am.
And I will say, too, that the ex-wife was aware from the get that he was bi. And although she was not happy for his moving on, I think probably because she wanted to, she's bitter. She hadn't moved on necessarily in the same way. She wasn't as happy, but she was kind of accepting of everything as well. And yeah, I just thought the book itself was a good example of, in the end, communicating. And then also there was a fairly decent co-parenting relationship that was highlighted, which I thought was nice. And that, your life doesn't necessarily end with divorce and being a single parent. So,
well, and one of the things that you and I had a very brief talk about was, let's see how, like, you texted me and said, let me know how realistic you think it is. Yes. Like, how is this just gonna be like a ridiculous romance, sexcapade, or do they take the time to fully form out like a believable, realistic world and relationship? And I think they managed to roll it all into one.
Yeah, well, and so to go along with that text that you mentioned, I have a perception that there is different kind of dating standards for a straight couple and a gay couple.
I can definitely verify that.
I'm just saying that based I'm just saying that based off of our conversations. We are very good friends. And so, you've said things that have then implied to me that it's different.
Gay dating and straight dating too can also be, it's just a more modern approach. Not that straight couples don't take a more modern approach in some respects, but there's definitely some pretty big differences depending on the couple.
Yeah, so do you feel like the book was generally a fair, even though obviously it's like a condensed, like 1 week starting romance and things like that. Did you feel like it was fairly representative?
Yes, because I feel like I've had very similar experiences to this book.
So you went to Miami
on
first class.
I said similar, not the same, although I would have loved to.
I can't see you planning a wedding, no offense, for someone else.
Obviously, it didn't end the same way for me because here I am. But yes, I totally feel like this is a believable book where they hit the usual like fun and interests, and then there's got to be a little bit of drama, and they can't see each other and fall apart. But overall, I found nothing unbelievable in the book.
I feel like a lot of times in the romance novels I've read in the past, there are definitely unbelievable parts where you're like, I don't. Well, also, I tend to lean toward fantasy. So, like, obviously, sex while flying.
Yeah, our relative perspectives of
Yeah.
how unrealistic. The last fantasy book I read.
Yeah. Well, the last fantasy book has Persephone in Hades, and they're in hell, so...
But yeah.
Yeah.
Perspective to the book.
Yeah. So what, did you have any other big points you wanted to bring up? Or thoughts?
Oh, there was one tiny little thing. I thought it was kind of nice that at the very end of the book, they're on a plane again, and the stewardess recognizes them from the previous year, and I was like, damn, that's a really good stewardess.
Yeah.
But I thought that was nice, like kind of full circle.
Another full circle thing, now that you mention that, is when they... I don't remember if it's the weekend in Paris or the weekend in New York, but Asher decides to take Mark clothes shopping. And he explains that, like...
I love this. I forgot. I love this.
Asher explains that he's been fantasizing about doing this because he just wants to make Mark feel great, and he wants Mark to look as great as, as much as he loves him. And then he's like, maybe this is offensive. Am I offending you right now?
Because previously he made fun of, like, the way he dresses. Like, oh, those polo shirts. So he's nervous. He was like, at the very outset of this, when it was a fantasy in my mind, I was like, this is going to be a ton of fun. Clothes shopping with my man. And
romantic and sweet.
Yeah.
And Mark is just like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, Mark is the kind of guy who's like, it's fairly comfortable and it matches. We're good.
He's kind of, it changes towards the end, but he's a yes man. He just does what people tells him. So he's like, he just goes along with it.
Well, and I think too, he's very pragmatic. He's like, this I can wear from the boardroom to my daughter's soccer game to, wine night with my neighbors, and I'm good.
But this is a scene that I love because what happens is Asher gets all worried that he's going to be offensive. Like, oh, wait, does he think I'm changing his style? Like, I couldn't possibly date you if you keep wearing the clothes you wear. I must buy you new clothes. And then that comes up. And Mark is like, listen, like, first of all, I'm not offended. If you like a certain way that I look in a certain dress, I'll wear that for you. Like, I don't think you're being rude or shallow. Like, yeah, you like the way I look in this or that? I'll wear it for you. Whereas some people in real life would be like, yeah, fuck you. You don't like the way I dress? I'd be like, no, I'm just saying, this is a fun thing. Let's get you some new stuff. So I loved that just ended the way it did, where Mark was like, I don't mind doing this for you. It's something that you enjoy. You like buying clothes and spending money, and you like this a certain way I look.
Well, and Mark has no opinion. He's like, I just don't care what I wear.
Yeah.
It's, again, as long as it works for my life, cool. I can definitely attest to, like, as long as I don't have to, like, dry clean it,
I'm Mark in this situation, and in most situations. I just go with the flow.
I was wondering, do you have one of the two that you identified more with?
100% Mark.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. OCD, I don't want to say anything to upset anyone, or, not to a degree where I'm just, like, being tread upon and used. Right. But, I want to keep things nice and simple and organized, and I just want to make sure people are happy. It's very rare that I'll get mad at something or somebody, and I'm just him all the way.
I will say, so I definitely thought that's how you would answer, but granted, again,
there's a wilder Asher part of me, but it's mostly Mark.
Asher is more upfront about his thoughts and his sexuality and things like that. And so there were some times where he would say something that was very, like, silly confident and sexual that made me think of you, just because we tend to joke a lot like that.
And that's the Asher part of me. So I see why, there's a fair bit of Asher mixed in, but the full-blown, long-term me is definitely Mark.
Yeah. I would say that
There's no way you're not Mark too.
I was actually going to say the daughter.
Look, she wasn't part of the equation.
Okay, fine. But she likes equations. She's going to skip a grade.
She does. She was very bright.
Yeah. But
Gets that from Dad for sure.
Also, Mark, I love a spreadsheet. Like I said, I'm all about order and plans and being on time and all of those type A. Like, many, many times when I'm starting a new meeting with new people at work, I'm like, look, I'm type A. If you want to tell me to slow down, like, please do, because I will just steamroll past you.
Yes. Now, did you see my review already on Goodreads, my rating?
I did not.
Okay.
Nope.
Because I want to guess each other's ratings.
Oh. Okay.
What do you think I gave it?
I'd say a 4.
I was going to give you a 4 as well.
So I rated it a 3.
What? Okay. So I'll let you go first. I did a 4, but my reasoning is simple, so I'll let you go first.
I'm pretty sure I marked it down as a 3. It was a 3-4. The thing is that there are just some traditional romance tropes of, one person being more protective or one person chasing the other, or like, part of a romance is to feel desire, and maybe it's because it was a gay romance, but I was just like, yeah, it's fun. There was no like, okay, interesting. Like,
there was no classic like dating situation, no sex till the third day. This was borderline like a grinder hookup. Like, once they realized they were both into each other.
Yeah, so I just didn't feel a lot of romance. And obviously, like I mentioned, the spicy stuff is not my kind of spice. They
heavily front-ended the spicy stuff and then heavily back-ended, like, the last fourth, all of the serious and romantic and dating life and real-life situations. So
still very good. Very happy I read it. Would read more from the authors.
3 is good. 3 is good. Would probably recommend.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend and definitely read more in the future. But it left something to be desired for me personally.
Okay. I gave it a 4 because, first of all, it did not fall into certain things I was expecting it to, where everything's going well, and then there's a third act, like, they misunderstood something, got into a big fight or an argument. It was way more realistic. It was just, distance is separating us. Let's give it some time. We'll talk. We'll make it work. And then it ends up... There was not a single point where they were, like, at each other, or there was a bad situation, which maybe it's a little unrealistic. Maybe there should be some fighting, but I was like, I'm glad there wasn't. It was just a good book through and through. Took place over roughly a year. Mm-hmm. And my other issue, so I had generally, there's a ton of fun with it too. Mm-hmm. I did it partially on Kindle and partially on Audible because they're intertwined. And it was funny because the guy reading the book, I was like, I just want to see what this guy looks like in the studio reading these sex scenes. It's got to be so funny. I kind of wanted to give it a 5 because I just thoroughly enjoyed it. But one thing holding me back and one thing that made the review hard, it was never going to be below a 3. It was a 3 to a 5. I went with 4. I was like, well, technically, this is my only romance book. I have, in the genre, nothing to compare it to. Is this a 5-star romance? I have no idea.
Right.
So I feel like I couldn't honestly give it a 5-star review. And 4 meant, like, yeah, I had a shit ton of fun. This was awesome.
Yeah.
And I read it. I did a night. I started it at night, and the very next day I finished it. This is not a long thing. Flew right through it. Good time. I'll probably remember most of it in the years to come, but it's not going to be like, oh yeah, that amazing book from way back then. Because this is what I call a real life story. I read a lot of sci-fi and fantasy because I like getting into all the world building and stuff like that, all the crazy creatures and gadgets and all that. And real life stories don't usually do it as much for me. I'm just like, yep, that's a story that could have happened. But this one didn't do that for me. It just went above and beyond. And I was like, this is a fun story.
So during Christmas, you said that you would be willing to read another cozy sometime. Do you think you would be willing to read another romance sometime?
Yes.
Yes. I'm glad that you liked it.
Now, see, what's going to happen is we're going to read a straight romance, and then I'll gloss over the sex scenes, and you'll enjoy them all.
Yep. Coming soon to a podcast near you.
Yeah, we'll have to do another holiday mystery novel and something else.
For sure.
So our next book is going to be, as we briefly mentioned, Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I'm already extremely excited for this one because despite its vastness, it's like an 800-page
Plus.
book, it is singular, one volume. This is not a series. I've already started. I'm halfway through. It's world building, it's character development, it's drama, it's intrigue, it's royalty. It's fitting everything in. It's telling 4 points of views, 4 stories, and it will finish. I will not have to read another book after it, and I'll get everything that I want.
So, please join us next time for that. And in the meantime, rate and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us at Paper Quest Podcast on Instagram. And feel free to leave us a comment so that we know what books you're reading and if you'd like us to read anything in the future.
You can also join us on Facebook at Paper Quest Podcast or email us at paperquestpod@gmail.com. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.